don't usually have such attractive visitors.
Well, thank you, but
Are you interested in this sort of thing?
Well, yes, a little.
Must be pretty baffling to an outsider.
From child actors whose teeth revealed a bizarre filming secret to real-life brothers playing on-screen siblings, and a TV mother-in-law who became an actual mother-in-law, My Three Sons was far stranger behind the scenes than its wholesome facade suggested. The show's revolutionary filming method meant guest stars sometimes performed opposite furniture, cast members needed weekly haircuts to maintain continuity, and one actress's dental development exposed the entire production trick. Here are 15 weird facts you didn't know about My Three Sons. Fact 1. The McMurray method revolutionized TV production.
Hello, Irene. Steve Douglas.
Here, Steve, drink this. It'll make you feel better.
Oh, thanks, Bob.
Fred McMurray didn't want to spend his entire year working on a television series, so he negotiated one of the most unusual contracts in TV history that completely changed how sitcoms could be produced. McMurray insisted on filming all of his scenes for an entire season in just 65 non-consecutive days spread across 2 intensive work periods, which meant he would shoot all of his parts for multiple episodes back-to-back, then leave for months while the rest of the cast filmed scenes without him. This revolutionary approach became known in Hollywood as the McMurray method, and it was considered absolutely bizarre at the time because traditional television production filmed episodes sequentially from start to finish. McMurray would arrive on set and film his portions of Episode 1, then immediately film his scenes from Episode 5, followed by his parts in Episode 12, jumping around the season completely out of order, based purely on which sets were available and which costumes he needed to wear. The technique required meticulous planning from the production team, who had to map out every single scene months in advance and coordinate wardrobe, set design, and storylines with mathematical precision. Despite the logistical nightmare it created for everyone else involved in the show, the method was so successful that it attracted other major film stars to television, including Jimmy Stewart, who used the same compressed filming schedule for The Jimmy Stewart Show, and Henry Fonda, who employed it for the Smith family. McMurray's unconventional arrangement proved that major movie stars could maintain film careers while still appearing regularly on television, fundamentally transforming the relationship between Hollywood cinema and the small screen. The method became a template for future shows trying to accommodate busy actors. Fact 2. Guest stars acted opposite furniture.
Wondering, Robbie, what's the matter? Aren't you feeling well?
I feel okay, Dad.
But that's your favorite dinner. Why haven't you eaten?
The out-of-sequence filming schedule created by Fred McMurray's unusual contract led to some truly bizarre situations on set that guest stars found completely disorienting and difficult to navigate. Because McMurray filmed all of his scenes during concentrated 2-month periods and then disappeared for the rest of the year, guest actors who appeared in single episodes often couldn't return months later when the production crew was finally ready to film the scenes. But that didn't include the show's star. This meant that guest stars frequently had to deliver their dialogue to empty chairs, pieces of furniture, or sometimes just marks on the floor where McMurray would theoretically be standing when his scenes were eventually spliced together during post-production editing. Directors would stand off camera and read McMurray's lines in a monotone voice to give the guest actors their cues, but the emotional connection and natural timing that comes from genuine interaction between performers was completely absent. Many guest stars reported feeling foolish, talking passionately to a lamp, or reacting with surprise to an ottoman, and some struggled to deliver convincing performances when they couldn't make eye contact with their scene partner or respond to actual human reactions. The editing team had to work miracles to make these Frankenstein conversations look natural, carefully matching eye lines and timing reactions so viewers at home would never suspect that the two actors had been filmed months apart in completely separate sessions. Despite how awkward and technically challenging this process was, it somehow worked, and audiences watching at home never realized they were seeing elaborate editing tricks rather than genuine interactions between the cast members. Fact 3. Dawn Lynn's growing teeth exposed the secret.
This make you happy? Yep, that makes me happy.
The show's unusual filming method remained largely unknown to the general public for years, but young actress Dawn Lynn's physical development during the 1969 to 1970 season accidentally revealed the behind-the-scenes production tricks to eagle-eyed viewers. Dawn Lynn played Dodie Harper Douglas, the adopted daughter who joined the family in later seasons, and like all children her age, she was losing her baby teeth and growing in her permanent adult teeth during filming. The problem was that Fred MacMurray filmed all of his scenes during a concentrated period at the beginning of the production schedule when Dawn's permanent front teeth were just barely starting to emerge, making them almost invisible in any scenes where she appeared alongside him. However, when the crew returned months later to film all the scenes that didn't include MacMurray, Dawn's teeth had grown in substantially and were now plainly visible whenever she smiled or spoke. Viewers watching episodes as they aired noticed that the little girl's teeth seemed to magically appear and disappear from scene to scene within the same episode, sometimes having a gap-toothed smile in one moment and then suddenly showing prominent front teeth in the very next scene. Television critics and entertainment journalists began writing about the continuity error and investigating what could cause such an obvious mistake, which led to the revelation of the MacMurray method and the show's unconventional production schedule. The incident became a famous example of how child actors present unique challenges for productions that film. Out of sequence, since children's physical changes happen so rapidly that even a few months can create noticeable differences. Fact 4. Weekly mandatory haircuts for continuity.
And it's all my fault.
Of course, it's not your fault, Charlie.
It is, too. I should have let her kick me a few more times.
Maintaining visual continuity across episodes filmed months apart became an obsessive concern for the production team, leading to some extremely strict grooming requirements that cast members had to follow religiously throughout the entire run of the series. All regular cast members were required to get professional haircuts once every single week without exception, ensuring that their hair length remained absolutely consistent, whether they were filming scenes in September that would air in January or shooting October scenes that would appear in March. The studio employed a dedicated hairstylist who kept detailed records and photographs of each actor's exact haircut specifications, measuring lengths down to the millimeter and documenting every angle to guarantee that each weekly trim produced identical results. The actors had no freedom to experiment with different hairstyles or let their hair grow out even slightly, since any variation would create obvious continuity problems when scenes filmed months apart were edited together in the final episodes. Fred MacMurray solved this problem in a completely different way by wearing a carefully fitted toupee throughout the entire series, which meant his hairpiece could be styled exactly the same way every single time he appeared on camera, regardless of how much time had passed. The toupee gave MacMurray much more flexibility than his co-stars enjoyed, since he didn't need to worry about his natural hair growing or changing texture, and the hairpiece could be maintained and styled by professionals between his compressed filming sessions. This level of grooming control was unprecedented in television production at the time. Fact 5. William Frawley hated the filming method.
Hey, boss! There's a dame here to see you.
William Frawley, who played the beloved grandfather figure Bub O'Casey during the show's early seasons, found the MacMurray method incredibly frustrating and never quite adjusted to the unconventional production schedule, despite working with it for several years. Frawley had spent 6 seasons performing on I Love Lucy, which filmed episodes in sequential order in front of a live studio audience, giving him immediate feedback and allowing him to build his character's emotional journey naturally from beginning to end. The traditional approach meant Frawley could feel the rhythm of each episode and understand where his character was emotionally in any given scene, because he had just performed the previous scenes moments earlier. On My Three Sons, everything was chaotic and disjointed, with Frawley arriving on set in the morning to film an emotional heart-to-heart conversation from episode 23, then immediately changing costumes to shoot a lighthearted breakfast scene from episode 4, followed by a tense argument from episode 15. Frawley complained to colleagues that he couldn't keep track of what his character knew or felt at any given moment since the scenes were filmed completely out of order, and he struggled to maintain consistent emotional tones when he had no idea what had supposedly happened in his character's life before or after the scene he was currently performing. The veteran actor, who was already in his 70s and set in his ways after decades in show business, found the constant jumping around exhausting and confusing, and he never developed the same comfort level with the material that he had enjoyed during his I Love Lucy days. Fact 6. Insurance troubles forced Frawley out.
Well, they were reading about high school marriages in the paper here, and when Jean took her suitcase, I figured...
William Frawley's departure from My Three Sons in 1965 had nothing to do with creative differences or personal conflicts, but rather stemmed from a cold business decision based entirely on his age and declining health that left him heartbroken. At 77 years old, Frawley was still delivering solid performances, and audiences loved his character, but Desilu Studios discovered they could no longer secure an insurance policy to cover him during production, which was absolutely essential for any television series to protect against financial losses if a major cast member became unable to work. The studio had been paying approximately $300,000 annually to insure Frawley against illness or injury. But insurance companies reviewed his medical records and determined he was too high risk to continue coverage at any price. Without insurance, the studio couldn't legally allow him to continue working on the show, since any health emergency would leave production in financial chaos and potentially bankrupt the entire series. Frawley was devastated by the decision because he genuinely loved working on the show and felt he still had plenty of good performances left in him. But the insurance industry's actuarial tables didn't care about his enthusiasm or professional abilities. The producers tried to let him down gently by creating a storyline where his character Bub moved to Ireland to care for a relative, giving him a graceful exit rather than simply killing off the character or having him disappear without explanation. Sadly, Frawley's health concerns proved prescient when he died of a heart attack just over a year after leaving the series. Fact 7. Frawley hated his replacement and got banned.
Anything.
Would you make some sandwiches for me to take on the flight?
I'd be glad to.
William Frawley's relationship with his replacement, William Demarest, who took over as Uncle Charlie O'Casey when Frawley left the show, was absolutely toxic and filled with genuine hostility that went far beyond typical professional rivalry. The two Williams had known each other for decades in Hollywood and had apparently developed a mutual dislike that only intensified when Demarest stepped into the role Frawley had been forced to abandon due to insurance issues. Frawley felt that Demarest was somehow benefiting from his misfortune and resented seeing another actor receive praise for playing essentially the same character type he had established, even though Demarest was simply doing his job and had nothing to do with the insurance situation. After leaving the show, Frawley would regularly show up uninvited at the studio lot where My Three Sons was filming, wandering onto the set between takes and offering unsolicited script suggestions or commenting on how he would have played certain scenes differently. His presence made Demarest extremely uncomfortable because Frawley's comments felt like pointed criticism and undermined his confidence while he was still learning the role and trying to find his rhythm with the rest of the cast. The situation escalated until Demarest finally complained to the producers and demanded they do something about Frawley's constant interference, which resulted in studio security receiving orders to bar Frawley from entering the lot entirely. Being banned from the studio was humiliating for Frawley, who had spent his entire career working in Hollywood and suddenly found himself treated like an unwelcome outsider at a show he had helped build into a success. Fact 8. Tim Considine quit over directing dispute.
I can just see myself writing an excuse.
Yeah.
What are you reading your Spanish book for?
Tim Considine, who played the eldest son Mike Douglas for the show's first 5 seasons, made the shocking decision to leave the series in 1965 after a bitter clash with producer Don Feddersen over his career ambitions that went far beyond simply acting in the show. Considine had been working in Hollywood since childhood and had developed a serious interest in directing television episodes, believing he had learned enough from watching directors work over the years to start taking on projects behind the camera. He approached Feddersen with a proposal to direct several episodes while continuing to star in the show, arguing that his insider knowledge of the characters and relationships would make him an ideal candidate to helm episodes. Feddersen flatly refused the request, explaining that Considine's contract required him to focus exclusively on acting and that allowing cast members to direct would set a problematic precedent that could disrupt the carefully orchestrated production schedule. The dispute went deeper than just directing because Considine's contract also specifically forbade him from participating in car racing, which had become his passionate hobby and something he desperately wanted to pursue professionally. Considine felt trapped by the restrictions and frustrated that his multi-year contract prevented him from exploring other creative outlets or following his genuine interests outside of acting. Rather than continuing to feel stifled and resentful, Considine made the difficult choice to walk away from a steady paycheck and a popular show, gambling that leaving would open doors to directing opportunities and allow him to race cars without contractual interference. Fact 9. Real-life brothers played adopted brothers.
When you're a younger sibling and you see your brother being the object of everybody's affection.
Stanley Livingston and Barry Livingston, who portrayed Chip Douglas and Ernie Douglas on the show, are actual biological brothers in real life, which created an authentic sibling chemistry that viewers could feel even though their characters were supposedly adopted into the Douglas family at different times. Stanley was already playing Chip when the producers decided they needed to maintain the 3 sons premise after Tim Considine left the show, so they created the character of Ernie as another adopted son who would join the family and keep the title accurate. The casting team could have chosen any young actor in Hollywood to play Ernie, but they decided to give Barry Livingston an audition because of his real-life connection to Stanley, and his natural rapport with the existing cast made him the obvious choice for the role. The brothers brought genuine sibling dynamics to their performances, with the kind of unspoken understanding and natural teasing that comes from actually growing up together rather than just acting like family members for the cameras. Barry was initially nervous about joining an established show where everyone else had been working together for years, but having his real brother already part of the cast made the transition much easier and helped him feel comfortable on set from his first day. The Livingston brothers remained close throughout their adult lives and have appeared together at numerous My 3 Sons reunion events over the decades, often joking about how strange it was to be adopted brothers on television while being real brothers at home. Their casting represented an unusual situation where real-life family relationships enhanced rather than complicated the fictional family dynamics on screen. Fact 10. Robbie's triplets kept the title. Accurate.
Fun parts. I found I had date books going back to like the 80s.
When the writers decided that Robbie Douglas and his wife Katie should have children in 1968, they faced a creative challenge in maintaining the show's 3 sons premise now that the family structure had evolved so dramatically over 12 seasons. The solution they devised was brilliantly simple and kept the show's title relevant by having Katie give birth to triplets, specifically 3 baby boys named Robert, Stephen, and Charles, which meant the Douglas household would continue to have exactly 3 sons, even though they belonged to the next generation. The triplet storyline was unprecedented for sitcoms at that time and created massive logistical challenges for the production team, who had to coordinate multiple infant actors since labor laws strictly limited how long babies could work on set each day. The show employed several sets of triplets throughout the remaining seasons so they could rotate the babies through filming days and comply with regulations about child actors, and parents of the various triplet sets became regular fixtures around the studio. Viewers loved seeing the Douglas family expand into grandparenthood and watching Fred MacMurray's character, Steve Douglas, embrace his new role as a grandfather to 3 energetic little boys. The writers mined considerable comedy from the chaos of having infant triplets in the house, with storylines about sleepless nights, mountains of diapers, and the difficulties of telling the identical babies apart. The triplets ensured the show could continue using its established title without seeming outdated or inaccurate, even as the family grew to include multiple generations living under one roof. Fact 11. TV mother-in-law became real mother-in-law.
Look, isn't this darling?
Yeah.
I'm gonna make one.
Yeah, that'll be nice, honey.
Tina Cole, who played Katie Miller Douglas and married into the Douglas family on the show, experienced one of the strangest instances of life imitating art when she married Beverly Garland's stepson several years after the series ended, creating a real-life family connection that mirrored their fictional relationship. On the show, Beverly Garland played Barbara Harper, who later became Barbara Douglas after marrying Steve, making her Katie's stepmother-in-law through Katie's marriage to Robbie Douglas. When Cole married Garland's actual stepson in real life, Beverly Garland suddenly occupied the exact same stepmother-in-law role off-screen that she had played on-screen, creating a bizarre situation where their fictional family relationship had somehow manifested in reality. Cole and Garland had developed a genuine friendship during their years working together on the show, often spending time together between scenes and talking about their lives outside the studio, so the eventual family connection felt natural, even though it seemed almost too coincidental to believe. The marriage meant that Cole would forever be tied to the My Three Sons family, both professionally and personally, unable to separate her television history from her actual family gatherings and holidays. Garland apparently found the situation amusing and would joke at family events about how she was still playing Barbara Douglas even though the cameras had stopped rolling years earlier. The relationship between Cole and Garland remained warm throughout the years, proving that sometimes the family bonds created on television sets can extend into real life in completely unexpected ways that no scriptwriter would dare to invent. Fact 12. Don Grady was a Mouseketeer and hit musician.
If you got that feeling, then you only go around once, go for it.
Don Grady, who played the middle son Robbie Douglas throughout the show's entire 12-season run, had an incredibly diverse entertainment career that started long before My Three Sons and continued successfully during his years on the series. Before landing his role as Robbie, Grady was one of the original Mouseketeers on the Mickey Mouse Club, performing alongside future stars like Annette Funicello and wearing the iconic mouse ears that became symbols of 1950s children's television. His experience as a Mouseketeer gave him valuable training in singing, dancing, and performing for cameras, skills that served him well when he transitioned into acting on sitcoms. While working full-time on My Three Sons, Grady continued pursuing his musical passions and formed a band called The Yellow Balloon, which scored a genuine hit in 1967 when their self-titled song reached number 25 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart. Balancing a successful music career with his demanding television schedule required incredible energy and time management, with Grady recording sessions during his breaks from filming and performing concerts on weekends whenever his production schedule allowed. After My Three Sons ended, Grady largely stepped away from acting and focused entirely on music composition, eventually becoming a highly respected composer who wrote scores for numerous television shows and films. His transition from child performer to sitcom star to professional composer demonstrated remarkable versatility and showed that his talents extended far beyond the clean-cut teenager he portrayed on My Three Sons for over a decade. Fact 13. Tina Cole played 3 different characters.
I should bring Katie Douglas back with her triplets at 45 or 50.
Tina Cole appeared on My 3 Sons multiple times playing completely different characters before she was finally cast as Katie Miller, who would become Robbie's wife and a series regular for the show's final seasons. Cole first showed up in earlier seasons playing various girlfriends and female classmates who interacted with Robbie Douglas in single episodes, delivering solid performances that apparently impressed the producers enough to keep bringing her back for additional guest appearances. Each time Cole appeared, she played a completely different person with a different name, different personality traits, and different relationships to the Douglas family, seemingly with no expectation that viewers would recognize her from previous episodes. When the producers decided they wanted Robbie to get married and needed to cast a permanent love interest who would join the main cast, they remembered Cole's previous guest appearances and her natural chemistry with Don Grady during those earlier episodes. Rather than worrying about the continuity problem of casting someone who had already played multiple other characters, the producers simply ignored her previous appearances and introduced Katie Miller as though Cole had never been on the show before. This casting decision represented a common practice in 1960s television, when producers assumed viewers either wouldn't notice or wouldn't care that the same actress was playing different roles, especially since the earlier appearances had been relatively minor and spread across several seasons. Cole's multiple appearances before becoming a regular cast member created a bizarre situation where eagle-eyed viewers doing marathon rewatches can spot her playing Robbie's temporary girlfriend in one season and then watch her return several years later as his permanent wife. Fact 14. Lawrence Welk's cover hit number 12 in Canada.
I know why. Everybody else falls in love in the spring, but not our little Robbie.
The My 3 Sons theme song became so recognizable and beloved during the show's early years that it attracted attention from musicians outside the television industry, including bandleader Lawrence Welk, who recorded his own instrumental version with his orchestra. Welk's cover of the catchy theme music was released as a single in 1961, just as the show was gaining popularity and establishing itself as a family favorite across North America. While the song didn't make much impact on American charts, it surprisingly became a genuine hit in Canada, climbing all the way to number 12 on the Canadian music charts in April of 1961 and receiving substantial radio airplay across the country. The success of Welk's version demonstrated how television theme songs could transcend their original purpose and become standalone musical hits, especially when performed by established artists with built-in audiences. Lawrence Welk's champagne music style, which emphasized pleasant, easy-listening arrangements that appealed to older audiences and families, proved to be a perfect match for the wholesome, family-friendly tone of My 3 Sons. Canadian radio stations played the instrumental version regularly, and many Canadians probably heard Welk's recording more often than they actually heard the theme song during the show's opening credits. The chart success created an unusual situation where a television theme song was generating its own separate popularity and introducing people to the show through music rather than through watching actual episodes, effectively serving as an extended advertisement for My 3 Sons across Canadian radio markets. Fact 15. Fred McMurray played his own Scottish cousin.
The last place you look for something is invariably where you'll find it. I'm afraid this doesn't fit me.
Oh, thank you.
During the show's final season in 1971 to 1972, Fred McMurray took on a second role by playing his character Steve Douglas's cousin from Scotland, Lord Fergus MacBain Douglas, in what became one of the strangest creative decisions in the show's 12-year history. The storyline involved the Scottish nobleman visiting his American relatives, giving McMurray the opportunity to play both characters in scenes together through split-screen effects and careful camera work that required him to film each side of the conversation separately. McMurray attempted to differentiate the two characters by adopting an exaggerated Scottish accent for Lord Fergus, but his accent work was apparently so unconvincing and awkward that the producers made the unusual decision to have his dialogue completely replaced in post-production by English actor Alan Caillou. The dubbing process meant that viewers watching the show saw McMurray's face and physical performance as the Scottish Lord, but heard Caillou's voice coming out of his mouth, creating a strange disconnection that made the character feel artificial and unconvincing. The decision to dub McMurray's voice suggested that his Scottish accent must have been truly terrible, since dubbing was expensive and time-consuming, and producers wouldn't have done it unless absolutely necessary to make the scenes watchable. The whole Lord Fergus storyline felt like a desperate attempt to inject novelty into a show that had been on the air for over a decade and was running out of fresh ideas as it approached its inevitable conclusion.